What's up, y'all? It's Sunday. I hope you guys maybe ended up in church today. If you didn't, I want to share a little bit of scripture and stuff that I've been reading this week as we kind of prepare for this week and kind of get some things ready. I recently have been trying to read and pray, and I've honestly just been in a very quiet space over the last few weeks. I haven't really ran to people. I haven't asked a bunch of people anything. I really have tried to seek the Lord and read the Bible more based off the things that I'm dealing with. And I think sometimes I get a lot of messages about like, where do I start, or what do I do to read, or I don't understand this and that. I would say, and I would encourage you to read the Bible based off what you're looking for, right? The Bible is basically this life book. Basically teaches you how to go about things. It teaches you things before they happen. It teaches you things after they happen. It gives you visions. It shows you things that people have experienced prior to you dealing with. That's kind of how I like to read the Bible. And a lot recently, I would say that I have been sad in a sense. I would say that I have felt a little more down, and I haven't really lived in the freedom as Jesus died on the cross for me, if that makes sense. I recently was reading in Galatians, and Galatians 6:9 is something I touched on the last few weeks, but just kind of talking about the idea that do not grow weary in doing what is good, because in due season we will reap if we do not give up, and I thought that was really great, and it kind of struck me a little hard because sometimes nobody wants to keep doing good and not get good in return. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to keep being kind and not get kindness in return. Nobody wants to love people that hate. You know what I mean? So I thought this was really good, and it really spoke to me because over the last few weeks I felt like I have had the ability to not be the kindest. I felt like I've had the ability to maybe say something I shouldn't, or maybe I've had the ability to share something that you know what I mean? It reminded me that do not grow weary in doing what is good. You know what I mean? So long story short, let's go back in Galatians. I found out that Paul wrote Galatians. So the cool thing about Paul is that Paul, if you guys have read before in 1 Corinthians, Paul did not like Christians. He hated them. And I always think it's so cool because it reminds me that the Lord can use anybody. And I always think about this. I really always think about, every time I think of Paul, I think about his name was Saul. The Lord blinded him while he was going into a city to literally harm Christians. And the Lord blinded him and said, what are you doing? Why are you persecuting my people? And he was like, what do you mean? This is what I'm supposed to do? And the Lord was like, that is not what I told you to do. So he blinded him. And he had a man in the city that, in the place that he was heading, to lay hands on him and said, you are going to do what the Lord has called you to. The whole thing is a whole thing. But he changed his name from Saul to Paul. And it was because of that interaction that he had with Jesus. So now here he is writing to the people of Galatia and the Christians, and just sharing a lot of really, really good knowledge. But you have to know who Paul is so you understand the magnitude and the significance of him trying to bring people to Christ. So when he's writing these things, it's so clear and so precise and so easy to understand. But you have to understand that he never liked these people. He never liked Christians. It's literally in the text, but you have to read it for yourself. But long story short, let's go to Galatians 5:25. If we live by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit. And I thought this was great. I'm not going to stay long. I just thought it was awesome because I think sometimes we are way too conditional. We are way too easily moved. We're way too swayed so easily. We're so quick to step out of what the Lord has called, over our life, or whether that comes to people. And I will say, a lot of our interactions, if you look at why we're in the place we're in, it's a lot of times based off people. So I don't want to act like it's foreign nature, but it literally says, if we live by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit. Let us not grow weary in doing what is good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. But it's also if we are going to read the Bible and I'm going to read for an hour, why am I going to leave my home to go out and act beyond myself as soon as something happens? You know what I mean? You didn't even try. I thought this was really cool because it was I don't want to read and live and continue to walk and live and act the same way. It's at some point you've got to change. So Paul's writing to the church. He says, for freedom Christ has set us free. Stand firm and do not submit to a yoke of slavery. That was in verse 5. And then in verse 13 it says, for you were called to freedom, brothers. Do not use your freedom for the flesh. Just because you can do it doesn't mean it's good for you. There's another verse that talks about that. So I think it's really important to know scripture and to read the Bible, because there's so many things that are going to be exposed or revealed to you if you know scripture. If you don't know scripture, then everything is going to be foreign. Every time something pops up, you're going to be so easily swayed. You're never going to have an idea on how to navigate or how to go about it because you have no idea what's going on. You know what I mean? So I want to encourage you, continue to read scripture. Recently I've been reading in Galatians because I really like how Paul speaks. Paul has been through a few things. So when Paul speaks, it's a lot easier to understand because you recognize that Paul has been you. You know what I'm saying? Paul has been me before I knew the Lord. So it's a lot easier to interpret advice or interpret the word whenever you recognize that the people have been through something you've been through. It's hard to listen to advice from someone who's claiming to be a millionaire who's not a millionaire. And it's hard to get physical or sports advice from somebody who didn't have success. You want to look at somebody that that's done what you've trying to do. You know what I'm saying? That if you did not hear the Lord speak that thing over your life, or that idea or that person over your life, lay it down. Seriously. And I've been having to wrestle with this because a lot of the desires that we have are not the ones that God has for us. You know what I'm saying? God wouldn't give you a desire or a goal or a dream that you could do yourself. What good is that? It's like teaching someone how to do something, but you do it anyway. Like, what good is that? What is the point? But I hope you guys have a great night. Hope you guys are able to get some sleep. It's about 11:30 right now. I always read pretty late at night. Make sure y'all stay in that word this week. See y'all. Have a good one.